Remember that one time that Christians were nice to people on the internet? Yeah, me neither. It doesn't happen as often as it needs to. And I'm not saying it didn't happen. I am going to say that it doesn't happen as often as it needs to, which is why I don't remember. Right? When you look at like a Christian's life compared to a non-believer's, we love to think, oh my gosh, they're so amoral. They don't have any foundation for their beliefs. They don't have any, and we love to think about how desolate they are in their beliefs. How totally in despair they are. And we act like it's from a position of concern and empathy. But if it was, then we would take that, and as soon as somebody said that, go, hey, I want to go evangelize. Hey, I want to go to this place and just talk to people about Jesus. Hey, I want to go to this place and just start meeting people. Because if it came from a position of empathy, if your faith, it's the same thing as your faith needs to inspire your works. That's what that is. If your faith in God inspires you to believe these things about atheists and about non-theists and anybody else who doesn't believe in Christianity, you have to be inspired to go talk to those people, to help those people in some way. Because if you're just talking about them, that's no more than gossip. That's no more than slander. The Bible doesn't say stray away from gossiping against Christians. But all the hate against these like other religions, that's hilarious, right? We can just quietly laugh in our rooms about how they're not going to heaven. Oh well. That's not how the Bible works. That's not how Jesus worked. Who did Jesus hang out with? You've heard it said so many times. And I don't think Christians hear it enough about who Jesus hung out with. Obviously, he was Jesus and he was God. He didn't really have to worry about falling into the temptations of the sins that he was associating with, right? He wasn't associating with the sins, he was associating with the sinners. And it was easy for him to do that as God. It was not easy for him to do that as a human. I totally understand that. But we are also called to do what Jesus did and to live like Jesus did, right? We are called to, without fear and without trembling, jump into the lion's den with those who are being persecuted. We are called to, without fear, without trembling, jump in front of that car to save that person. Push him out of the way. Regardless of his religion. Regardless of his faith. Even more so, I would say, because he's not a Christian. Because he doesn't have the joy of resting in an eternal security in Jesus Christ. How many times are you going to hear the parable of the Good Samaritan before you realize that Samaritans and Jews believed very different things? They were both not Christians. One of them could have been. But the idea, the whole point of Jesus telling Jews about a good Samaritan is that he's telling believers, people who believed, they were like, oh, we believe in God. He's telling those people about someone who didn't believe in the same God, someone who put more emphasis on this side of history than this side of history, and they didn't believe in the same God that these two people believed in. Putting those two people in the same situation and saying, hey, you know how you get to heaven? You know what you need to do? You need to love your neighbor. Well, who's my neighbor? Who's your neighbor? Who's going to act neighborly? People who don't belong in your faith. People who don't associate themselves with Christianity. There's this rapper that I like. His name is Toby Nwigwe. And he was on this podcast or like some like where he was being interviewed by some lady. I don't think she was a believer. I think she was just like, but she wanted to know about his Christianity and his faith and why it was so important to him. And he has this line at the end of his song where he includes from the podcast. He says, "You'd be surprised how many people will get out their car and help you push your car if they see you pushing your car." There's a lot of good people out in this world that aren't with you, that aren't believers. Now, being a good person doesn't get you to heaven. But Keith, are you arguing that being a good person is more important than being a Christian? No, but it's sure as hell more loving sometimes. I see Christians so often being so divisive on social media. And it pisses me off because they post one thing. I saw somebody post something that was extremely divisive. They posted something about how, if you were really an atheist, then you should be celebrating COVID because it actually helps you get rid of the sick and the weak. And I was like, yes, this will help spread the message of the gospel. This is so helpful, This just emulates love and compassion. This just perfectly encapsulates the empathy that we need to have as Christians. I see that. And then today, that same person was like, "Oh my gosh, so many people are being divisive. If only we listen to the Bible." And I was like, this is not even funny how ironic you're being right now. It's not even funny how irritating you make people. And I know, okay? I know, I hear you. I am being divisive right now. I don't mean to be. I want to come off strongly because I want people to realize how important it is for Christians to be empathetic. To live like Jesus did means to be empathetic towards sinners. Remember that verse in Hebrews where it says that he knows exactly what you went through and he sympathizes with our greatest fears and sorrows, and he went through everything that we went through? Remember that? Remember how he did that for us when we were sinners and when we weren't Christians so that we could become Christians? Where did that go? Where did that empathy go? It turned into hate and rage against people who don't believe in God. We think we're at war with the world. We're not at war with the world. The world is at war with Satan, and Satan's winning by convincing them that they're at war with us, and by convincing us that we're at war with them. Yeah, I said it. Satan convinces us of things. We're protected of possessions and demonic stuff, but we aren't protected against temptation. We have a way out, but it's going to come. We have been tempted so easily and tricked so easily into believing that our worldview is at war with their worldview. No, stop. What did Jesus do? He talked to Christians. He talked to Pharisees, people who knew their stuff. And he was like, do you know what you're doing right now? Do you know how arrogant you sound? Do you know how arrogant it sounds when you ask your Father in heaven, hey, why did you save that guy? And then your Father says, are you kidding me? He was lost and now he's found. We're rejoicing over the fact that he was found. You were never lost. You never went anywhere. Jesus said that to the Pharisees, to the believers, the people who thought they had it all together, to us. And then to the sinners, he just preached. He preached love and compassion and empathy because he wanted to forgive them so badly. Did Jesus yell at the two sinners who were on the cross? He didn't say anything to either of them until one of them said, don't you know who this is? This is the Messiah, the Son of God. immediately after he was mocking him for hours. He said, "This is the Messiah. Don't mock him. He's the Messiah. He's the Son of God. Look how he's acting. He's so humble. Hey, Jesus, will you remember me when you get back into heaven?" And Jesus was like, "Truly, you will be with me in paradise." We need to offer that paradise to sinners. We need to recognize that we were them. We used to be them. We used to be just like them. We didn't know anything. And then we started believing in the Bible, and we learned about this God who is so loving that he died for us. And we were like, yes, I want that in my life. And then to other people, we're like, you don't want it? Fine. Come on. Get off your high horse. Stop being so holier than thou. Pray. Pray for those who are afflicted. Pray for those who are persecuted. Pray for the people who are struggling. Pray for the Christians who are struggling with the ideas about faith and what it means to actually know something, to be certain of something that you can't have any possible scientific evidence of, that you can't scientifically prove. When they're struggling with, oh my gosh, did Jesus actually die for me though? Because I really don't feel any worth. Don't yell at them about how little worth they have. That's not helpful. Whatever. Just something that I'm passionate about. I'll just leave you with that verse in Hebrews. Jesus was empathetic towards us, so we need to be empathetic towards others. We love because he first loved us, right? We love Christians because he loved us? Yeah, sure. But we also love sinners because he first loved us. He loved us when we were sinners, so much that he died for us. That's what that verse means. How arrogant would we be if we neglected such a great salvation for other people? No, they don't deserve it. No, they don't. Trust me, they don't. But you also don't. You don't deserve it at all. But you get it. You were offered it. So you took it. And now you're throwing it in their faces. Please, I beg of you, Garrett Gang 2020, that's our campaign. Be empathetic. Be empathetic. Please, please be empathetic. What I mean by that is don't feel sorry for them and do nothing about it. Try to understand what they're going through and help in any way you can. If you have a friend who's struggling right now in the faith, help him. Help her. Help them understand that they are loved by God and by you. Be empathetic. Just please be empathetic.